What medicine do ghosts take when they have a cold? Coffin drops. Welcome. My name is Count Frightculous, and I will be your guide into the chilling, spooky scariness of the world. And maybe, perhaps, the universe. We're waiting for the Grim Picker, of course, to bring us our book of scary stories. But I have to warn you, never deny the choice of the Grim Picker. Once the decision is made, it must not be undone. And there it is, the banging on the door. He's here, and so now we can start to review the scary book stories for today. Scary stories we're going to review now is from this Secrets of Sinister House. You know, we did one that was called Haunted House, Secrets of Haunted House. Now we've got Sinister House. Ooh, Sinister House. Let's see if it is indeed sinister and not maybe something else. I don't know. I was trying to think of something clever. I couldn't. Sinister House. Ooh. And so the first story in this book of scary stories is called The Claws of the Harpy, where the harpy apparently is a giant bird. And we see right away when we're here, we see there's a man on a boat, and this giant bird comes and attacks him, then knocks him off the boat, and he dies. He drowns, I guess. The bird attacked him and scared him into the water, and then he drowned. So anyway, they're talking about it the next day at this, and they're like, oh, I heard this guy, he must have drowned. He fell overboard and was drowned while he was fishing, and the man's like, yes, it sounds terrible. Poor Dennis, he was drowned. And then they find out that he gets promoted. This man gets promoted to vice president. It was between him and Dennis, but Dennis died. And so it goes to him. Very odd, is it not? So he goes home, and there's his wife. And his wife's got the giant bird, and she's like, kill, Icarus, kill. And you see the bird attack some, I guess it was a squirrel or something like that. It looks like it has little claws there, so it's probably a squirrel. The husband's like, how can you keep that giant harpy eagle as a pet? Wow, must it kill things? And she's like, yes, that is what it's there to do. I've trained it, it will do exactly as I say. And so she's got the bird, and then you see she's got this whole bird observatory thing, this whole place with tons of birds. The woman's a bird lady. She's very much enticed with the birds, and she's got this giant eagle bird that she's trained to, that can kill. We start going, wait a minute, the man was attacked on the boat and he drowned. I wonder if the wife has something to do with this man getting his promotion to vice president, So the wife's like, yes, it's about time you were promoted, nagging him. Yeah, it's about time you became something in that company. If you had the same spunk as Icarus there, you'd really be going places. So anyway, he's sitting there, he's having the dinner, and the wife seems to be a bit of a nag to him, and so you're starting to think maybe the wife is pulling the strings behind the husband, right? Because he's like, well, maybe in like 10 years I can move up in the ranks. And she's like, 10 years, you should have moved up quicker than that. He's like, well, that's not going to happen. It's not possible, because the president of the company, he's very much healthy and alive and well and likes his job. Well, then you see here the guy on the golf course, he's the president. He actually looks like, if you see this picture here, he looks like an old Scottish man. He looks like he's the groundskeeper for the golf course, not the actual president of a company. But you see the shadow of the eagle there, and well, he bites it in the end, but not before the man is able to rip the bell off of the bird. The bell is still on the bird, okay? And so he rips it off. And so then the lady's watching TV, and they hear about how this man was attacked and he's killed, and he's like, oh my gosh, But then she says, oh, there was a bell. He was clutching a bell. And she's like, wait a minute. And she goes and looks at her eagle and like, oh my gosh, the bell is off of my eagle. And she's like, I can't believe this. And she's very distraught about it. And she's like, I can't believe it. And he's like, oh, don't worry about it, honey, it's fine. She's like, no, the bell is missing. If somehow my bird, Icarus, was responsible, I must tell the authorities. He's like, I'm sorry, I can't let you do that. He goes, because I'm the one who was controlling the bird. She's like, what, are you crazy? You deliberately did that? And so then he strangles his wife and he kills her, buries her, and then he's sitting there, no big deal. Then he goes out. One night he hears some noises and he goes out to see what's going on, and then all of a sudden he's like screaming, no, stay back, please, I didn't mean it. And then the police come the next day because they apparently, they have the bell and they're like, we're checking all these places with birds. This is apparently something that would go on a bird, according to the neighbors, one of their little pets is a rare harpy eagle. If that's true, it could be what killed the guy Benton last Tuesday. Anyway, we got to check it out. So they go to check it out, they go in, and all of a sudden, oh my gosh, what happened here? There's the husband, and he's got little bird nest in his rib cage and on his hip bones, and the birds look very happy. Look, there's two little birds there, look like they're kissing, they're sitting on top of his head. It's interesting that his hair is still there. His hair is just fine. You think they would have taken his hair and used it for part of their nest, but they didn't. The crazy thing about it is, how long was the time that he was attacked by the birds and the police discovered him? Because he is a complete skeleton. His bones have been picked clean. Did the birds eat him, I guess? Because they're kind of making it like, oh, he's there. And he's hanging by a rope. Did the birds hang him from a rope on the tree? I mean, what did this to him? We have to wonder that it had to be the birds, right? The birds got revenge on him for killing their master, the woman, his wife. But the fact that he's a skeleton, but it's just that his hair is so perfect. It even still has the part in the hair. I'm a bit confused by that. That's Frightculous to me. It's a very Frightculous. That's the Frightculous moment in this story here, is that the man's bones are there, but his hair is there. You would think, again, the birds would have used his hair for their nest, but they didn't. They left that there, but they did build the nest in his body, in what was left of it, of his skeleton. Anyway, that's the story. So it was kind of a twist, right? There was a twist. You thought it was the woman because she's kind of nagging, but then it turned out to be the husband. The husband was the one manipulating it, and when the woman, his wife, found out, he killed her, buried her there with the birds, and the birds got the revenge for her, and that's the end of that story, okay? Was that scary? No, what's funny was when you see him sitting there with his perfectly parted blonde hair, it took away any of the fright from me. I don't know about you. Anyway, the next story is called Hunger. Hunger, okay, and we see there's a vampire who looks like he's hiding there in what looks like a mausoleum, in one of the tombs, right? And he's spying on them, and there's three people walking, and there's a man, he's one of the caretakers, the trustees for the cemetery, and he's walking around with these two people, and he's like, I'm very delighted that you've come to take care of the cemetery, because we've been having some unfortunate incidences with the vampire. And they're like, oh, it's fine, we're not scared of the vampire. It's like, really? It's like, no, we have protection, we're okay. Okay, well, just to let you know, but very good, glad that you will be here, I will leave you to it. And then the whole time the vampire's like, ooh, there's something for me to feed on. Oh, I'm so hungry, my stomach is growling, I need the blood. And so then he sees the trustee walking away. He's like, I'm going to stalk him and eat him, right? So he goes after him, but the police all of a sudden show up, and the police are walking around. They're looking for the vampire too, I guess. And he's like, oh, I have to hide. He's like, I shouldn't be afraid of the police, but I'm immortal, so I can't die. But if they shoot me, it hurts really bad. I'd rather not be shot at. But the police do see him, and they shoot him. He runs away. So he runs back, and he jumps into his coffin, because he's like, well, I got to get away. The daylight will be coming up soon, so I might as well just call it a day. I'm just going to be hungry again. Another day with no food for me. So you think he would venture outside of the cemetery. If you're hungry, just go somewhere. Why are you only waiting in the cemetery? I don't think a lot of people are wandering around at night in the cemetery. That's maybe why you're hungry there, dude. You're not a very bright vampire. Get out, do some things, learn from your mistakes, or at least, get out and explore a little bit, branch out a little more, The vampire is not too bright, is he? So anyway, he's sitting there, and he's in the coffin, and all of a sudden there's a light, comes on, and he wakes up. He's like, what's going on, What's that light? Who? And it's the two people, and they're like, oh, what you were sitting here. He realizes you're waiting for me here, and they're like, yes, we knew this is where you'd be coming. Of course, that's where you're going to go, into the coffin. And he's like, well, don't you know I'm a vampire? I'm going to eat you. And they're like, oh, really? Well, I don't think so, because these two people, I guess, turn out to be a vampire, because you see they grab him and they're like, we came here for a reason. We're the caretakers for a reason, because we knew that we could feast on something else. You, perhaps. And so you see it at the end. Yeah, the fangs, see there. And so they're going to eat him. But I don't understand that. So vampires feed on other vampires? If these two people were vampires, why didn't they just why didn't they just eat the trustee and move on? See, again, this is a ridiculous vampire story to me, because the vampire one, he's stuck in the cemetery looking for food, wandering around in just a cemetery, and then the other two people that come and agree to be the caretaker, because they know there's a vampire in that cemetery, they go through all that trouble just so they can feast on one vampire. Well, again, I didn't think vampires feasted on each other, because they're already infected with the vampirism, right? They need fresh blood. They need the human blood. So it doesn't make sense. The story, it's a twist. There's a twist at the end. You know, oh, okay, this, that, but it's kind of ridiculous. Why would two people feast on one vampire? I don't know. Unless, I was thinking maybe they were vampire hunters, but no, they're vampires, because you see the fangs there in that panel, so you know they're about to bite him and eat and drink his blood. Maybe that's the next level up from vampire. Maybe they're super vampires and they have to feed on other lowly, dumb vampires that hang out in the cemetery and don't know how to go find blood on their own. Anyway, that's that story. It's not very scary. It's kind of stupid. Those vampires are very dumb, right? Both sets of them don't really have a lot of smarts. So I don't know. It doesn't make sense. It's a vampire story, but it just doesn't. They're trying to put the twist there. They're trying to trick you, put a little twist in there, but the twist is more like a twist of the lemon. It's very sour. It's not a very sweet ending. It's a very sour ending to me. Anyway, the next story, and I think it's the last story in this book. It's called Mr. Riley, the Derelict. So right away we see here there's a man and his wife, and then they have an old man. And so the son, this is the son, and his dad lives with him. And his dad apparently he worked for the fire department a long time ago, and he got disfigured in a fire. So his face became very hideously disfigured. The wife, you would think she would be supportive. She's not very supportive at all. She's a bit of a nag, and she's like, oh, your father's here. Why does he have to be here? Blah, blah, blah. He gives me the creeps. She's like, come on, he got hurt in the heroic service when he was a fireman, Peggy. And so it's like, I don't care. She's like, big deal, He hasn't had a job for 15 years. You'd think he would do something with his life after that. Wow, she is very, very mean-spirited woman, isn't it? You're wondering if something's going to happen to her. Usually it does, right? So the father hears this and he leaves. He goes out, he's wandering around. It's in the cold, of course. He goes to a restaurant. He asks to eat, but the waiter's like, hey, can you go sit in the corner? Sorry, but you know how people are. They look at you, you're kind of a freak. So go sit in the corner. He's like, all right, just give me a rye and a coffee, right? A roast beef on rye and a coffee or whatever. And a ham on rye, I'm sorry. He orders a ham on rye and a coffee, Mike. So there he is, And so then he leaves the restaurant, and these two hoodlums beat him down. And they're like, oh, look, ha, ha, ha. That's what I like about mugging old bums, Tiny. They're such slow-moving targets. So they beat him down, and he goes to the hospital. But when he gets to the hospital, they're like, look, you're not really seriously injured, and look at all these other people in the hospital that are more injured than you. I'm afraid we can't keep you here. And he's like, all right, then, I guess. I mean, this guy has the worst luck, right? Ungrateful daughter-in-law, beat up by the hoodlums. The restaurant makes him sit in the corner. He goes to the hospital after being beat up, and they tell him, you need to leave because we need those beds for somebody else. So he leaves, but he's got a splitting pain. He's sitting on the bench, splitting pain in his head, and he's wishing he had something to eat, just an apple or anything, because there was a tree there, but it's winter. It's like, if only this tree had apples, I'd have something to eat. Well, all of a sudden, apples appear on the tree, and he realizes, wait a minute, when I had the really sharp pain in my head, I made a wish and it came true. So now he's thinking, wow, I need to get that pain back, and I could wish myself to be what? Normal again, not be ugly, hideously deformed, and I could have maybe somewhat of a normal life again. So he's walking along and he's waiting for the pain. All of a sudden he feels the pain in his head, but then then he hears the screeching and he looks around. He's about to wish himself, healed to look normal again. But then there's a boy hanging from the building, from a fire escape, and they're like, he's going to fall to his death. What can somebody do? Please help. And so, of course, he uses his final wish. Instead of turning himself back to normal, he saves the boy, right? And he goes home, and the people right there, a miracle, that's what it was, right? So he goes home, and he gets home, and the son's worried. The son is genuinely worried. The son loves his dad. He's like, Dad, we were worried. What happened to you? And he's like, oh, I'm all right. I was just out and about. I stayed with a friend last night. Don't worry. Well, the wife, look at her little snarky look there. She's still angry. He's like, man, my father looked like he had a bad night. And then she's like, your daddy is fine. He's got a roof over his head and us to look after him. What more could an old derelict like him wish for, right? So, and he's there, he's crying, he's upset because he had a wish and he could have used it to make himself heal again. But you wonder, hey man, just go out and start banging your head around on the poles and stuff. Maybe you can get that feeling back and maybe you can wish yourself. We don't know. The only good thing would have been is if something good did happen to him finally in the end, but it didn't, because I guess it's a scary book story. So, they can't really have a happy ending to it. He's still kind of miserable because he's still hideously ugly, right? But I think of the man as a hero. I look up to him. I'm like, hey, you are somebody to be admired because you sacrifice yourself twice for somebody else. So it's not scary. Not scary. What happened? Secrets of Sinister House. The only thing sinister about that house was the daughter-in-law, right? So that's the book of the scary stories. Now we need to get the official rating from the Demon Baby. I can't imagine that this one's going to get a very high rating either, because the last story is not scary. You can take pity on him, but it's just not scary. So anyway, let's find out what the Demon Baby has to say about this one. Secrets of Sinister House. All right, so here we are. There's the Demon Baby. The Demon Baby is aware. And can you give us an official rating for this not really scary book of stories? Can you face the Secrets of Sinister House? Well, I'm going to say, can you face the face of the Demon Baby? Because I don't think she's going to rate this one very good either. And there we go. Demon Baby is aware. Okay, Demon Baby, please give us your official rating for this book of, we shouldn't call it Sinister House. It should be called Superficial House, because it's not scary at all. It's superficially not scary. They're just leading you on, I believe. So anyway, Demon Baby there. She's giving it one head spin. Okay, she's at least going to give it one head spin. I guess maybe she thought one of these thought, oh, here we go. Well, that's it for the show then. All right, thank you, Demon Baby, for the one head spin. And with that, I guess we're leaving now. And I'll see you next time. And thank you for joining in. Yes, we're leaving now. Sinister House, goodbye. This one wasn't scary enough to even give it a proper ending. Thank you for joining, and we'll see you next time.